Good morning on this beautiful morning. As we begin our service, I invite you to silence your phone, close other windows on your computer, take a deep breath, and center yourself for worship. We open and welcome to the ancestral people of this land, acknowledging that our church, like all of Burke, rests on the unceded territory of the Manahoac tribe of the Great Sioux Nation. We seek healing and the realization of justice with the people of this land who live on in their descendants, the present-day members of the Monacan Indian Nation, the Patawomic Indian Tribe of Virginia, and the Piscataway Indian Nation. We honor the ancestors as we move toward healing so that all together shall one day know full justice. I'm Judy Robison. My pronouns are she, her. I'm happy to be your worship associate today. If you aren't new to Accotink, look around. Do you see people you haven't met or you haven't spoken to in a while? These people like you and they want to get to know you. Help us live up to our mission to be a welcoming and inclusive spiritual home for all by reaching out and making a connection. By visiting this congregation, newcomers are in a transition moment. And people in transitions are more open to new friendships, new experiences. That means that your new best friend might be here this morning, and this is your chance to get to know them before someone else does. Whether you're a longtime member or a newcomer or something in between, we encourage you to stay for our social hour, online and in person, immediately after the service. And there's lots going on today after the service, so you'll hear more about that later. We're so delighted that you decided to join us today. Welcome. We light this chalice with this prayer from Karen Johnson. Spirit of life and love and resistance, may we find within us and around us the resources, inspiration, and insistent invitations to be the ones we have been waiting for. May there be joy. May there be justice. May there be amiable companionship. May there be more joy. So be it. See to it. Amen. So, you see somebody else up here today. Our minister, Reverend William Levewood, affectionately known as Rev Lev, is here most Sundays. But today we have a guest in the pulpit. She is known to many of us. So this is Rev Kathryn Adams. She's the minister of the Unitarian Universalists of Chester River in Chestertown, Kent County, Maryland, so not so far away. She was a member of AUUC for 20 years before she started her ministerial career. In fact, Accotink sponsored Kathryn's ordination, and we will be sponsoring Brenna Kelly's ordination next week at Rockville UU. And there's more information on that in the lobby, so I hope a bunch of us will be able to go to Brenna's ordination next week. Reverend Kathryn was here for 20 years before she started her ministerial career. This flows after her medical, military, and policy careers. She considers herself a scientist. She has a spouse, and she's the mother to 2 young men. So we welcome you, and thank you for being with us today.
Good morning. Good morning. I'm Olivia Tuggle. I'm the chair of the Children and Youth Spiritual Development Committee. Today I have the pleasure of sharing a story inspired by the many indigenous-led movements across North America. This bold and lyrical picture of book issues an urgent rallying cry to safeguard the Earth's water from harm and corruption. Water is the first medicine, Nokomis told me. We come from water. It nourishes us inside our mother's body, and it nourishes us here on Mother Earth. Water is sacred, she said. We stand with our songs and our drums, we are still here. The river's rhythm runs through my veins, runs through my people's veins. My people talk of a black snake that will destroy the land. Ooh, that's scary. Spoil the water, poison plants and animals, wreck everything in its path. When my people first spoke of the black snake, they foretold that it would come for many, many years. Now the black snake is here. Its venom burns the land, courses through the water, making it unfit to drink. Take courage. I must keep the black snake away from my village's water. I must rally my people together. Ooh, I love that. Yeah, let's do this. I stand for the water, to stand for the land, to stand as one against the black snake. Oh, yeah, again. We stand with our songs and our drums. We are still here. It will not be easy. We fight for those who cannot fight for themselves, the winged ones, the crawling ones, the four-legged, the two-legged, the plants, trees, rivers, lakes, the earth. We are all related. Tears like waterfalls stream down, tracks down my face, tracks down my people's faces. Water has its own spirit, Nakomi told me. Water is alive. Water remembers our ancestors who came before us, she said. We stand with our songs and our drums. We are still here. We are the stewards of the earth. Our spirits have not been broken. We are water protectors. We stand. The black snake is in for the fight of its life. Oh, yeah.
And our reading today is in our gray hymnal, and it's from Langston Hughes, I've Known Rivers. I've known rivers. I've known rivers ancient as the world and older than the flow of human blood in human veins. My soul has grown deep like the rivers. I bathed in the Euphrates when dawns were young. I built my hut near the Congo, and it lulled me to sleep. I looked upon the Nile and raised the pyramids above it. I heard the singing of the Mississippi when Abe Lincoln went down to New Orleans, and I've seen its muddy bosom turn all golden in the sunset. I've known rivers, ancient, dusky rivers. My soul has grown deep like the rivers.
Water is life. We heard that today in our story for all ages and in the poem we just shared, describing the powerful history of the water keepers and naming so many rivers that have impacted civilizations throughout the years. History that is deeply grounded in the wisdom of our ancestors, and history that is unfolding. Water is life because science is everything, literally, which this is one of my favorite kiddo t-shirts. Life started in water. We keep rivers of water flowing through our bodies. We call it blood and lymph. The systems that bring nutrients to our cells and bodies and take away waste or fight infection. Water is life and always has been. Civilizations and communities of people follow the water. They develop stable communities along the water. And we have done this as long as there have been human beings on the planet. And I think that's part of why being near a body of water is a powerful way to connect with nature, as was named earlier. Powerful, fluid, calm, and energetic. Standing on the shore, watching hurricane waves come and land has reminded me of the forces that are so much bigger, so much more vast than myself. Wild, natural, and powerful. Examples of these thoughts have resonated with the book Wounded Tigress by Ian McCarran. He and a team traveled and wrote about the journey and the lengths of the Tigris, the great river that has accompanied humanity through a lot of our existence on this planet. Helsinki is a city where the Tigris accompanied humanity throughout that journey. The city started at the river's edge, and people would walk up the banks and cliffs throughout the villages and bazaars, and they would travel over ancient bridges over the Tigris. Helsinki was the capital of an ancient Kurdish dynasty, the AUUC, and it was one of the oldest, most continuously inhabited settlements in the world, 12,000 years. There's an old saying that I used to hear. Americans think 100 years is a long time, and Europeans think 100 miles is a long distance, right? It was seen by the Assyrians, the Romans, the Byzantines, Ottomans, and others as stops on the Silk Road. 12,000 years. Let the history wash over you. Helsinki was known for its historic architecture that blended Turkish, Mongolian, and Persian influences, a cultural blending place as a stop on the Silk Road of antiquity. People who were still living remember the city where they were born, and they grew up in the caves above the city. The Tigris starts in the mountains of Bayerland, Turkey, as the springs that, while beautiful, don't necessarily look like the source of a river that flows through human history. The flow of those smaller springs come together, and so starts the river. Interestingly, the springs on the other side of that same mountain will flow together in the opposite direction and create the Euphrates. Two ancient rivers emerging from one mountain that Ian McCarran called the divine roads of the earth. Isn't that a beautiful name? Two rivers whose banks hold echoes of human history and gently offer it to us. Two rivers that sustain life, two rivers that we continue to take from without giving back, without being the water protectors or guardians of the rivers. The Tigris continues traveling through Syria and Iraq to the Persian Gulf. And this Memorial Day weekend, it felt significant to talk about this river, as it flows through so many of the places our service members, including myself, were deployed to in the Iraq War. Mosul, Baghdad, Basra, sites of the dried up marshlands, and more. The BBC estimated that 461,000 people died in the Iraq War, related causes, between 2003 and 2011, and that the war cost the U.S. $3 trillion just for that time period. That feels important to honor this Memorial Day. The reflection calls us to honor continuing broadening of the Memorial Day holiday, originally Decoration Day. The history of this holiday has a very interesting evolution, and that is another message. Happy to talk about it after the service if people wish to. That count includes the 60% who died from direct violence and the rest who were also impacted by the infrastructure compromise, polluted water, lack of food, lack of access to medical care, and more. And this is what is happening right now in Gaza, Ukraine, and is coming for our communities in the inappropriately named Big Beautiful Bill that threatens to become law. People die without water. people die without food. People die because food needs water and life. Proper medicine based on germ theory needs water. Life needs clean, safe water. We already, everyone here, likely have forever chemicals in our blood from unregulated industry. Forever chemicals are the solvents used to make Teflon stick to things and other things that are water impervious, rain repellent clothes. And their danger to life has been proven in documents neatly summarized by Vertasium, one of our family's favorite podcasters. He did a whole episode on the history of dying livestock and industry's response to just slightly tweak the molecule, but we don't know this one's dangerous. Like microplastics in our water. This is not honoring the rivers of the earth that have nurtured humanity since time immemorial. And I want to be clear that I am not picking on these countries in the region. This is a humanity-wide issue. The water cycle is global. I grew up with the pollution in the Hudson River, which was also why people settled in those beautiful hills in New York. Huge efforts to clean it up were part of my childhood. The Dalai Lama writes of when he came to Boston, he washed himself in the river and was advised to go seek medical care. This is a global issue of our relationship with the earth, the divine roads of the earth. Water is life. We need to be water protectors. Water protectors from the black snake in our story for all ages. Water protectors from the chemicals that accumulate in our bodies and cause harm. Water protectors from microplastics shed every day. And this isn't to demonize people who create new things, but to honor the need for humility in the face of the wondrous complexity that is nature and our deep essential truth of our oneness, our interdependence, our interbeing with all existence. This powerful concept crosses so many religions and meaning-making traditions. This weekend, we honor those who served our country as I did, and particularly those who died in service and lost their beloveds. I served because I believe in being a guardian. You always get asked that question, right? Why did you choose to serve in the service? And today, I call us to honor those lives that have been impacted by war, by state-sanctioned violence and more. Their lives and how they touched us, you and me, flow in our lives as ancestors, loved ones, and in ever-expanding ripples. There is a river in my soul filled with their wisdom, song, and love. Their lessons flow in our lives and how they lived and loved and found joy, even in the hardest times. We are all called to be guardians of the great rivers of this planet. The Los Angeles River was once the primary source of water for the Tonavka people, and it led to the settling of the area. And it was a great, shallow, meandering river. And where it went wherever it wanted. It flooded often, not nice and predictably like the Nile, temperamentally and irreverently. This was a free river, wild and beautiful. So after a particularly significant flood in 1939, the Corps of Engineers encased its banks in concrete, including the bottom, creating an urban culvert. You can see the changes. And again, it killed the river. Years later, people would organize, and the section was returned to an earthen bottom. The sections bloomed with life. It may not be the same, but nothing ever really is. Every 10 years, our whole skeleton turns over. Even when you think you're not changing, we are. It is beautiful, and healing began. The Tigris flowed through segments of Turkey where similar decisions about the river were made. Water rights, the flow through nations and various cultures, where and if a dam for hydroelectric power should be built. One of the consequences of several of the dams holding back the water is that for a 40-mile stretch in the upper Tigris, it is downgraded to a stream. And it made my heart hurt to read how Ian McCarran and his team walked along, quote, one of the most famous streams in the world. In the process of creating the dams, people had to decide whose history mattered and whose could be flooded, whose way of life would be changed forever. And we make those choices all the time as a society. Whose property gets rebuilt after a storm, fire, or other natural disaster. Policy is powerful, and it has built and destroyed communities. On this journey, Ian McCarran spoke to those who lived the old ways and adapted to what was present as a series of the dams were built. Remember Hasenkiev, that ancient civilization I opened with? Imagine the bridges of Marco Polo crossed, growing into and supporting and thriving outdoor museum. It was well-preserved architecture and a thriving eco-historic tourism site. It met 9 of the 10 World Heritage Organization preservation cultures. And Turkey wouldn't submit it. So not only was it flooded before the dam for the hydroelectric power, it was encased in concrete first. Millennia of history lost. Some things cannot be replaced. And I think the reason that particular passage stood out to me so much right now is we are facing a similar choice in our own country. The misnamed Big Beautiful Bill will continue the destruction of the federal government we've been witnessing. Additionally, it will remove a tool for many of us to act as guardians. Hidden in that budget bill is Section 7032. 32, 5 digits, making it so no appropriated funds can be used to enforce a ruling of contempt of court. This will make our judiciary ineffective. With an autocratic executive, a compliant and complicit legislature, my hopes for our society through this period were with the judiciary. And seeing the power of that branch planned to be curtailed, hurt. Now, this measure may not pass, and it may be overturned by the Supreme Court for being obviously unconstitutional. Yet, it hurt to have something that I was holding on to feel threatened and weak. I wonder if that's happened to anyone else recently. And yet, hope is a spiritual practice, not an emotion. It has no external source. It is something we do to live our UU values. And through this process, as I was reflecting on both the history and this moment in our own culture, I realized I had lost the lessons of the river. The lesson of the river is that water moves. It moves together. The river doesn't hold on to a structure to do something that the river wants to do. Remember, the LA River was wild, and it went where it wanted to go. Water is unstoppable. Dams can only hold it for so long, and they have constant upkeep because over, around, or through, water moves. Water lets the energy flow through it. Doesn't try to hold it. No one molecule can hold it all. When one molecule holds a lot of energy, it may get evaporated. And it may seem a little more isolated from the rest of the water, but it's still part of the water cycle. Together, the ocean holds so much energy. in the water cycle, and it manages to balance and transform our world. And it has, time and again. Water moves with the energy, and maybe rage, and maybe joy. Water dissipates this energy as it contacts lands and transforms the world around it in ever more complex fractals, repeating and unique. The lesson of the great rivers of our time is in our story for all ages. We, the people, are the river, and we can unite and become an unstoppable force. We, you, me, we know that water is life. Life is precious, wild, and wonderful.
So please rise in body or in spirit and join in our closing words. As I invite you to join now with these words of David Bumbaugh. This church is dedicated to the proposition that behind all our differences and beneath all our diversity, there is a unity that makes us one and binds us forever together in spite of time, death, and the space between the stars. We pause now in silent witness to that unity. Now that we've gathered together in this welcoming and inclusive spiritual home, let us go out into the world inspired to share our values. Thank you.